let's go ahead and get into it. So by NBD, we have Introduction to Nostr. So we're going to be taking a look at all things Nostr. We're going to look at some code. We're going to write some code. Let's have some fun. Now, getting into Nostr, you can see where Nostr is located on GitHub. It's under nostr-protocol/Nostr, and you can go to nbd.wtf. From there, you can see it's a truly censorship-resistant alternative to Twitter that has a chance of working. It's a simple protocol, the simplest even, that is able to create a censorship-resistant global social network once and for all. And I think, Nostr really is a new social communications protocol. So it doesn't require on any trusted central server, hence it's resilient. It's based on cryptographic keys and signatures, so it's tamper-proof. It does not rely upon peer-to-peer techniques, therefore it works. So straight from the repository itself, this is what Nostr is, and sprinkled in my own take. So the problem, why do we even care about a decentralized alternative based on key pairs and signatures such that it is tamper-proof? Why do we care? Well, apps are built on the traditional client-server architecture where you don't own your ability to publish, store, edit, and retrieve your own data. So, for example, if you're on the Twitter app and you're using the Twitter servers, you can read and write to your own Twitter account. However, what if you are, using multiple social media applications like many of us are? Well, you have a problem. You cannot use the shared identity amongst the different social applications that you're using. So you cannot write to, for example, TikTok servers or to the TikTok client from Alice. You have to use third-party integrations. But what happens if you get banned and you lose your following? You lose your ability to influence. You lose your ability to communicate from wherever you built your following. And then you essentially have to start over on another social network or create another account if you're able to. And this doesn't really create a lot of interoperability. And this creates some big significant weaknesses, as we've seen with folks getting banned for Twitter for arbitrary reasons, even speaking the truth. And having it labeled as misinformation. So we see all these enormous issues with existing social media platforms, not only just from a technological level, but also from a social and philosophical level and political level. They're all essentially operating in their own silos, and we don't need to operate that way anymore. The solution is that events that are provably yours speak the same language between server and apps and own your identifier and following. So this is Nostr. It has events that are Schnorr signed. We have JSON messages that are relayed over WebSocket servers, which are relays. So Nostr, as it compares to something like Twitter, is the first open decentralized communications protocol that aims to solve the problem of siloed social media problems, amongst many other things. But as you can see on this quick comparison on the right, you can see that there's enormous benefit to using a protocol like Nostr compared to a siloed, centralized social media platform. So it's interoperable, so it can work quite easily with other protocols. People can contribute to it. It's open source. It has global payments, which are called ZAPs, which are payments over the Lightning Network. You have identity and following ownership. So you get banned from one Nostr client, you can move to another Nostr client or Nostr app. They're both user-friendly, both on mobile and web, though you have censorship resistance with Nostr. So you get, again, if you get banned from a client, you can still broadcast to multiple sets of relays, including your own. It's tamper-proof because you're signing the event and provably showing that the person that is publishing from this public key, has the private key, and others can verify it because of that. So let's go ahead and take a look into the Nostr fundamentals here. So we have.
Hey, Santos, I want to bring up one thing. This is why Nostr. Yeah. It's kind of weird how this just naturally happened today. But so Twitter is not letting us stream to. It's not letting us do this hacker stream right now. So this is another reason to build to build on Nostr. It's like literally stuck in sending data. So there you go.
Yeah, we'll have to get the recording, and then I'll make some like kind of light edits to it, and then maybe
Yeah.
we'll ship a
But
video or something like
it's
that.
streaming right now on YouTube, on Twitch, and our PBS Twitter. So I'm gonna retweet it from there. But it's not streaming to the Plub Blob Twitter. This is not the first time they've done this to us, by the way. But I think
Okay.
maybe we're doing Nostr. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, Twitter's like, get the Nostr out of
Because
here. We're scared.
does it block? Does it because it do they block Nostr posts? Are you still able to post about Nostr on Twitter?
I don't know. I don't use Twitter that much anymore, to be honest with you.
Neither do I. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So getting back to the presentation, looking at Nostr fundamentals, we have key pairs. So on the left, you can see we have public and then we have private information from left to right. The public information on Nostr is like an email address, phone number, user ID. It's something that you can give out and to share with other people. So you can see what it looks like on the bottom left. For example, it has npub and then the encoded public key appended afterwards. And then for your secret, it has nsec with the private key encoded appended afterwards. And this is something you never want to give out with anyone. You can think of it as like a password, a passphrase, something like that. Now, encoding types. So this is used for saving space and readability of the data. So on the left, you can see some examples of hex, and then on the right, you can see an example of Bec32, and you can see like the general shape of the data. So when you see one of these, you kind of understand what it is the goal of this. You don't need to know like how hex works or how Bec32 works, but just at a high level, you can see what kind of encoding type that you're dealing with, because some applications require you to convert it between the two types. So that's why we're presenting this and why it's important to know about it at a high level. So a hash, you can consider this to be like a fingerprint. It's totally unique and impossible to derive the inputs used. Typically, the algorithm that's used is SHA-256, and it's used for multiple different things, but it's used for like signatures. It's used for um, challenges that are presented to clients, and I can show an example of that later on. It's used for Nostr identifiers, kind of combining all the event data, hashing it, and then putting out the Nostr ID. From there, we have events. So everything in Nostr is this same blob of data. Everything in Nostr is considered to be an event. So you have this ID, you have this public key, you have this created at time, which is a timestamp that's converted to an integer. We have kinds of events that tells you what kind of event it is, so you know how to handle it. Certain clients care about certain event kinds, and then some others don't. We have tags, so we can add additional metadata about this particular event, as well as use it depending upon the event kind, even in the content that you're rendering back to the user. We have content, and we have a signature, for example. So Nostr event kinds. So you can go to the repository, the Nostr protocol repository, and you can see all the different types of events that there are, and I'm sure there's many that are undocumented or people are kind of using in stealth. But you can see that some of the common ones like metadata, short text note, recommended relays, encrypted direct messages, so on and so forth. So then you have Nostr tags. So it goes into this Nostr tags array. So it's like an array within an array. And you can add multiple different types of additional metadata about the event. So you can add a reference to like a public key. You can add like titles, bolt 12, challenge, countless different things. Then you have the created at property as a part of the event. This is, again, the timestamp that's converted to an integer, and that's the date and time when creating the event. Certain clients will use this information to validate whether or not you're sending them something recent or not. You have, whoops, I forgot to update this, but this Nostr content property is where you would add, for example, just a text note or even markdown for the blog type content. We have relays, which is a WebSocket server that speaks the language of Nostr. You can have paid relays, meaning that you have to pay and give your public key in order to be allowed to send or receive events from this particular server. Some servers are completely unpaid, and you don't have to pay anything to be able to send and receive events. And ultimately, they store your events, they store other people's events to it. So let's look at some event examples. So
High
when I was
voltage
first
sign,
learning
high
about
voltage sign, high
Ooh.
voltage
what
sign.
happened,
Wow. Somebody just sent us 2,100 sats.
wow, thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. Jenna?
That's very
Jenna?
kind.
Very kind. Um, cool.
All right. So with the profile metadata event, this is exactly the shape and the type of things that you would include within this Nostr metadata event type. So this is kind 0. As you can see there's a public key populated. This would be the author of the event's public key. You can see some logic on how you would actually do the timestamp conversion. So converting timestamp date now into something that can be used with this within the Nostr protocol. You set the kind to 0, you have 0 tags, and then you have content. And this is kind of a clever way to use strings. So you can set this to a stringified JSON object where you have a name, which is the username. You have the about, where you can have a string. And then, for example, you can have a picture, which is like your avatar. You can then hash the event to create Nostr ID. And then from there, you can sign the event, which then creates a signature, and then that's what you put in the event here, and this is what you'll ultimately broadcast to a particular relay. And now you'll see the example of a short node event. It's a signed event, so we're going to send this out. This is like, for example, the social clients that are similar to like Twitter, for example. This is the event kind that they're using. So something like Primal it's mainly reliant upon these sort of short text notes. So you have a public key. Again, you have the timestamp. The only difference is you have kind of one. You have the content here, which is a string. So you're not using it as a JSON string. You're just using it as a regular text note string. From there, you're adding the ID. You're creating a signature, and you're broadcasting that to a relay. Then we have a long form content event. So, for example, if you're trying to create like blog type content that's shown on like abla.news, for example, this is exactly the way that you're going to structure this event. So you'll have like kind, you can have tags potentially for like a title and subject if you wanted to. Just depends on how you want to implement it, how other applications have implemented it. You'll add like some markdown similar to what you would use in like GitHub. So you can use like a markdown editor. There's lots of different versions of this open source. You're going to create the ID from the other data by hashing it, the event object, and then you're going to sign it, which then create the signature, and then you're going to add it as a string, and then you're going to send this to a Nostr relay. So as you can see, between like all these different event kinds, everything is just an event, and it's very flexible. And once you kind of grok it, you really grok it, and then
Yeah.
the limits to what you're going to build is just limitless.
Yeah, dude, we've been doing just at PubLab, we've been doing the workshops. Like last year, Super did the workshop for Nostr. I think it was like in August, and then like everybody, even me, and I'm not a coder, you know that, and I was able to by the end of the 50 minutes was able to pick it up. It was pretty. And then also Christopher from Arc, he also did a workshop and he showed us to use it with like Next.js and all that kind of stuff. And even then, I was like, wow, I was kind of following along. So yeah, if you're interested, definitely go to like Zebedee, the links that we were showing you, and then also the PubLab YouTube. We have a lot of Nostr courses, and then of course our Nostr course too. So it's really fun, dude.
Absolutely.
Nostr is really fun to build on.
Yeah, and if you're in Texas, you got to stop by the Pleb Lab. That's where everything's
Yeah,
happening.
absolutely. And then I think Fiat Joff was the one. He was the one that created it, right?
Yeah, Fiat Joff.
He was the one that created the protocol. So there you go. I mean, kind of makes sense. It's really cool.
Absolutely. All right, cool. So thinking about the Nostr protocol. So like you've learned a lot about Nostr. You heard a bit about it earlier that it doesn't necessarily rely upon one server that you're sending data to. So basically, you have these clients, which are apps that can be on like a mobile phone, desktop, laptop, tablet, whatever. We'll see clients for everything. It can live on the web, not even just as an app, but it could be a web app. So
Mm-hmm.
you use these clients to then broadcast and to create events. From there, you're sending it to different relays. So you're going to write it to relay A, relay B, dot dot dot, and then relay Z, for example. So any number of relays that you're interested to in sending it to. So if relay A bans you, then you can just go to relay B, C, D, all the way to Z to still fetch the events that you're creating. And then you can also read from them, so it's such that like, hey, I want to go to relay B and read this data, and there could be multiple ways of like structuring this. For example, you could even use this as like a traditional client server architecture, but get the advantage of WebSockets, for example. So you could just use relay A, and then that can have like a specific model and use case. Maybe you want moderation for your particular application, but then any other application that's also using Nostr is following the same open standard that could maybe request data from your relay and get it back and render it on their page. So it allows, even if you're using a different architecture than what I'm showing here, there still allows for significantly more flexibility with building an application or aggregating information, for example. So that in and of itself is incredibly powerful. And then you know that it's tamper proof. You can verify whether or not someone actually created something. If you want to take your following or your post somewhere else, you can. Absolutely.
You guys have documentation, right, on y'all's website for relays to create a relay, or am I imagining that?
Yeah, Andre Nevis, our CTO, wrote this awesome guide. It's on his blog where he walks you through step by step on how to create a paid Nostr relay. And that guide
Boss.
is awesome. Like we set one up for BitBlock Boom, which is
Oh yeah,
a
you did
BitBlock Boom.
Gary's, right? Didn't you do Gary's? Is that
Yeah,
is that the documentation that you used for that, dude?
yeah, dude. I
Oh
set that up
wow,
in like
I
not too
remember.
long at all.
He was coming by. Just real quick, Gary side. I love Gary. Gary, I love you, by the way. He like came by and he was like asking everybody, and I was like, Santos, and you like literally set it up within like 30, 45 minutes, right? And then
Yeah.
he was out there telling everybody, zap me. It was awesome. He was just saying it in his boomer way. It was cool. Uh, yeah, love
Yeah,
Gary.
Gary's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's another great conference that's coming up
Oh
too.
yeah, the
Look
BitBlock
at.
Boo. Yeah, but yeah. So
Yeah,
to get
that's
back to
super.
this, so yeah, you guys do have documentation on how to do a relay from scratch, basically, right?
Yeah, you can go to docs.zebedee.io
Cool.
and learn how to set up a paid relay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so kind of looking at like the flow now, like a diagram of like how are you going to create, like what are like the different steps that you're going to have to do in order to create the basic event object. I was alluding to earlier, you need to hash the basic event object to create an ID. So then it's uniquely identifiable using
Mm,
hashes. So let's create an event. So basically, the app wants to create an event. You create the event structure, and then essentially what that event structure is the public key, the timestamp as an integer, the kind, the tags that you want, and the content. So it's pretty straightforward.
mm-hmm,
So you create that initially, and then from there, you're going to pass the basic event object to convert it to a JSON string. You're going to hash it, and then it's going to create the ID. So it sounds like a lot more complicated than what it actually is. So then from there, you just add the ID to the event, and then you're going to create a signature, and that'll prove that you are who you say you are, and that you have the authority to publish the event using the public key in the event. So then you'll take the event ID, convert it to bytes, and then you're going to sign the event with the secret key and convert it to hex. So slightly off in my memory earlier about the exact nature of this flow. But yeah, this is the actual flow, and then we have some code base examples that I wrote. So once you have like the signature and you have the ID along with the basic structure to the event, you're going to connect your relay. You're going to construct an array with the event and have UTF-8 encoding, which sounds more complicated than it is writing it in code, and is generally a standard for sending any data over the internet. Then once you send it, you'll get a result back from the relay, and the relay will have notified you that it's either accepted the event or denied the event. And we can show two different examples.
Dude, this is amazing. I love how you're able to like kind of break. Oh, we're gonna build.
We're going to build our first
Oh,
event. Now
nice.
we're going to go ahead and take a look at this repository. So we have it pulled up here already. So you can find this Nostr Python util here, and this is for instructional purposes only. So I wouldn't recommend using this for like a production use case.
Okay.
But what we can do is we can clone this repository just like that, and then let's go ahead and cd. Let's go ahead and install the requirements. So from there, you can create like a virtual environment. I already have the code. You can copy it directly from the repository. Boom.
Nice, dude.
Now you can just copy this, sit back, relax, maybe drink a mojito. I don't know. Just chill.
Will we have mojitos at the hackathon? Will there be mojitos at Tabcom?
I mean, if you want it to be at the hackathon, it could be at the hackathon. But yeah, Zebedee will be doing some cool stuff in the evening. We'll have this like fun section of the Lightning Village. So during this fun section, it's like after all the talks and everything all day. There'll be this cool area you can chill as a hacker. We'll have some like good refreshments, refreshing beverages available, some great conversation, and some really cool people hanging out. So just like you were talking about networking earlier, come and hang out, meet some new people, chat, talk about Bitcoin, talk about Nostr.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah.
Ops leading the fiat system. I mean,
and
possibilities are endless.
And if you want to be the sponsor for mojitos, definitely reach out to me or Santos. You have a margarita machine. That way you can keep it like, non-alcoholic and alcoholic one. It would be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be very fun. I don't drink alcohol, so I'll take a non-alcoholic one for me.
Nice.
Yeah, so let's take a look at what we got going on here, right? So if you remember earlier, we were looking at this presentation and we were thinking about the event kinds that exist. Like, let's even get more abstract here. We were looking at this event kind and we were thinking, all right, ID, pub key, created at, kind, tags, content, and signature. So here we have the ability to use a function written in Python, and we're creating a public key. We're assigning it to the variable priv key, and then we're going to serialize it, and we're just calling this function. And then from the private key, we're getting the pub key, and we're serializing it, converting it to hex. From there, we're taking the key pair and returning it. So that's how you're getting your key pair. From timestamp, I'm just creating time.time, getting the current time and converting it to an integer and returning the timestamp. For the event kind, I just have this kind of like loose if statement, nothing complicated, but just so I can pass in like text and then set the kind and get it returned. So it just makes it a little bit easier. So now let's take a look at what we got going on around creating the event ID. So we talked about earlier, we looked at that user flow or that diagram where it looked a little bit intimidating to create the ID, right? It's like, convert to JSON string hash and then create an ID and add it to the event. Well, all we're going to do is we're going to pass in the pub key from the event, the timestamp, the kind, tags, and the content. Here, we're converting it to a JSON string, and then we're using the hash library to take the event data, encode it in UTF-8. So it's just a method call with one argument. Then we're going to hash it with SHA-256, and then we're going to convert it to hex, and then that's what we're returning. So you can just copy and paste this if you're like a Python coder. And even if you're using like a browser extension, like Nostr2x, for example, it's even easier than this. This is like the lowest level. This is about as hard as it gets on the protocol level. So that's how you create like an event ID. So for example, you want to create a signature. So remember that we take in the event ID in the private key to then sign it. So first what we're doing is we're converting this to a byte array from hex. So we're passing in like a hex event ID. We're converting it to bytes. And then we're using our private key to sign it. So we're going to sign the ID in bytes. This is an argument that's required. Otherwise, this package that I'm using throws an error. And then I'm setting raw to true. And then once I get that back, I'm assigning it to the sig variable. And then I'm converting the signature to hex. And then I'm returning it. So like really straightforward on that flow. As you can see, it's only like 3 lines of code. And we could actually even simplify this further if we wanted to, just to paste here. And then we could just return the signature. So we could do that. So you could even make it 2 lines of code. And then we have some logic on how to broadcast the event. So like one of the final steps here, right? So we want to broadcast the event. We're going to connect to a relay. We're going to send them the event. We're going to receive the result, and then we're going to print it out. So here we have like creating a connection to the relay URI that we pass in. We're going to send the event that we passed in. This is the final event with this sort of array structure. We're going to stringify it, and then we're going to encode it as UTF-8, and then we're going to get the result back after we send it, because we're using the send method here. We're going to get it back, and then we'll be able to print out the result and then close the connection to the relay. So that covers like all of these flows, basically, in code. So we just have some very simple functions, a little early for that one. Wait, no, we already passed that one, right? So we're here now. So then if you want to publish the event, all you do to get the timestamp is you're going to create the timestamp. You're going to get the event kind. So it's just remember that this is just returning the timestamp. We're going to get the event kind. So it's just a very simple function where we're passing in short note to get kind 1. So then from there, we're assigning it to kind. We're passing in a key pair as a public key with the timestamp, the kind, tags, and content. And remember, you could set tags here to be whatever you want. So you could look at the Nostr repository to know which kind you actually want to, or which tags that you want to pass in here as arguments, and you can pass them in. From there, we're going to call the create event ID. And from the create event ID, remember that the steps that we're following, and ultimately what we're going to get back is an event ID in hex, that's a hash. So we're going to assign that to event ID. Then we're going to create the signature, like we reviewed earlier. Once that's done, we're going to create the final event, and this is what we're going to broadcast to the relay. So we have the event, so we're passing in the event and the relay URI, and that relay URI is what we get from this function being called. So this is how we can publish the short note and the long form note. So clear as mud.
Yeah, dude, that was really well explained.
Thank you. So now let's go ahead and actually broadcast an event. So this first one's going to fail. I think we're going to get an error because a relay, we're not subscribed to that relay. So just giving everyone a heads up that that's going to happen and that's expected. All right, so let's see. There we go. That was actually not an expected error, but I just undid it. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the actual error that we were expecting. And we received OK, and then false, and then blocked, no active subscription. So it actually looks like it accepted our event, but it returned some other additional information about being blocked with no active subscription. Then let's broadcast one to Damus and see what happens with Damus.
Yeah, let's see here.
And now we got a true, and then we got no blocked. So now we actually could look this event up and see the Nostr event. So you can actually search this ID and pull up a post that says Zebedee rules. And it'll just be from this key pair that I generated, right?
Mm-hmm.
All I'm doing is passing that key pair in. I'm passing the relay that I want to broadcast it to, the content, the tags, and then I'm referencing it to my public key, my actual public key. So then I can see when it happens. So yeah, that's pretty much publishing a short note. So this is like about as low level as you can get and bare bones that you can get. And if you want to understand Nostr, I personally like to start at those kind of places where I'm at the lowest level and then work my way up the kind of abstraction layers, if you
Yeah,
will.
absolutely. Dude, this is phenomenal.
Does the audience have any questions? This is probably a good like point to start if anyone's been commenting or asking questions.
No, I think, I think Twitter's just blocked us. They blocked us. So the only thing that we're streaming to is YouTube, Twitch, and Zapstream. We're streaming on Nostr, but yeah, I think you've explained it so well. It's either that or you've explained it so well. There is no questions. One of the two. Yeah, unfortunately, they just didn't let our Twitter post go through for it.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, Twitter's probably Elon tried to ban Nostr. So
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot all about that. Maybe that
yeah,
we should talk a little bit about that, right? Like, so for people that don't know what Nostr is or even cares, I would just mention that like Nostr came out of this kind of like grassroots kind of movement, right? And everybody was pitching in, helping it grow to this larger thing, what it is now. But in the early days, I would say probably like December, once Jack got on board, that's when like Elon started implementing all these changes on Twitter to like, I guess, to stop the Nostr growth. How would you describe it, Santos? Like you weren't able to share your npubs and stuff like that.
yeah, that's essentially he tried to ban a protocol. Is the simplest
Yeah,
way to put it, and that is impossible to do. You can't ban a protocol. So
yeah. So, um, anyways, that's why this is so important. Is like we're building on freedom technology here. So, um, I don't know. That's why I'm only on Nostr these days personally. I don't have a Twitter. So, um,
yeah, I'm working towards getting rid of it myself.
but
Yeah,
anyways,
so Nostr Tools. So Nostr Tools is an open source repository by Fiat Joff and NBD. So this provides lower level functionality, but it's still like significantly abstracted. So you don't need to do all these sort of like manual functions that I was writing like in Python. That was purely for me to understand like what's actually happening behind these methods, behind these function calls that are taking place in Nostr tools. You could also look at NDK and the snort system if you want to like even have more out the box functionality. As this package says, if you want an easy to use, full fledged system or a solution rather that abstracts the hard parts of Nostr and makes decisions on your behalf, so it's opinionated, take a look at NDK and Snort System. So check those out if you're interested. For the next demo and purposes that I'll be using Nostr tools. So you can install it quite easily. So you can npm install Nostr tools. You can see how easy it is to generate key pair, so generating the private key and the public key. You can see creating an event, getting the pub key, getting the timestamp, setting the kind, and then getting the ID is as simple as calling get event hash, and then getting signature is as simple as get signature event private key. So kind of similar to what I built in that kind of lightweight package or like utils library. And then from there, you can use some of the validation functionality. So you can use validate event, you can use verify signature to make sure that it's okay and very okay before you actually broadcast something on someone's behalf and get a rejected event or try to push something that someone didn't actually like sign or doesn't know the
mhm.
secret to push an event out. Has relay connection functionalities. So I don't want to go, too deep into this, but I would recommend if you're interested in building some JavaScript or TypeScript applications, this would be a great first place to start.
Yeah. Also, too, it's good to mention that the guys in Pleb Lab they made a Nostr course, and I think Captain Stacks goes over Nostr tools specifically. So if you're interested in checking that out, check out the Nostr Devs course. It's kind of interesting,
Definitely.
like seeing what you're doing, Santos, with like today and how you're going about Nostr, and seeing how the guys do it at the lab. It's very similar. It's interesting how that kind of works, right? With the open source, like everybody kind of uses the same tools, and um, yeah.
Absolutely. We gotta build on these open standards and
Yeah,
contribute.
really cool to see.
So now we looked at this Nostr Python utils. Let's look at another code base that I worked on, something that's like, that I'm quite passionate about. So
Oh, you're
we
gonna
went
show
over
him the.
this.
Oh, okay. You're gonna show him the one that you showed me the other day.
Yeah, I'll
The.
show that one. This one's different though,
Okay.
but I'll
Okay.
show
Okay.
both of those.
Okay.
But I'm gonna show Formster. So I had some fun thinking about like the old days of V bulletin boards. So I used to,
Yeah.
be an anon and posting on V bulletin boards, part of like a lot of different communities, and it was a blast. You made a lot of friends. Uh, yeah, so it was just like absolutely fantastic time to be on the internet. It felt so
Yeah.
free. You could just say whatever you want, and yeah, like you make friends. I had friends on like esport forums where we were playing Counter Strike, and we're all toxic to one another all over the U.S. and the world. And then we had
Yeah.
one for World of Warcraft where we, all of the guild chisme or gossip was being discussed. You had people that were infamous, you had people that were famous, and then you had like high competitive guilds like talking trash about each other, rating and where they made progress to PvP trash talk. And then you had this cool one called like Rage Zone. So
What's
Rage Zone
that?
was like this European forum, and it had like all of these private game server files. So me, being like 13 and very much so interested in like hacking and private servers, databases, and such, like you could follow these guides and set up your own private server of like World of Warcraft or Mew Online
Yeah.
or Risk or Maple Story, any of those
Yeah.
popular games from the 2000s era. And you could set the experience rate. You could set the drop rate on like legendary or rare items. So you could essentially like play through the whole game when it would take you normally like 5 years to get to that
Yeah.
point of nonstop grinding. You could get to there in like a day or a week, depending
It sounds like
upon
you were
the rates that
really.
you
It sounds
set.
like you're really heavily involved in that. Sounds like you were really into it.
I dabbled. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm heavily involved. I dabbled a
Let
little
me
bit
check
here.
something. I just heard a pipe fall. Let me just check real quick and see what that is. It's pretty late here at the lab, so it's like 9 o'clock Texas time. So let me just double
Oh
check this real
yeah,
quick, Santos. Keep going. Keep going.
I'll keep going. We'll go through Formster. So then now, like, let's go ahead and run this code base, and you can see compiled. We have the web server set up, and now, like, let's head over to localhost, and we can take a look at it. So localhost 3000. Okay, and we're fetching form events, and then we're showing them on the page. Is essentially what you're seeing here. And you can see that we like to talk about a lot of different things. We had some people at Kubo Plus using it, and you can create forms and you can like publish these sort of events. So, for example, you can put test and test. From there, you can see the thread. So you can say like test thread one, test thread description one, and then hello world as the content. And all of this is taking place all on Nostr. You can see the title, the description of the thread, the author's public key, the content, and then you can even reply with the comment like "Yo,"
Yeah, I came back. It
and you
was
can see the comment.
just for people that are watching. It was a Ovi. He's putting together a table. So I was like, we were supposed to do it together. I guess he just started early. So okay, that's fine. It's good. I won't have
Yeah,
to build the
makes
whole
sense.
table. He'll get it started. What
So,
part are you at right now?
I'm walking through Formster. So I was walking
Okay.
through creating a form. We created a form. We now have this thread, and now we replied to the thread, and now we have a comment. So yeah, this is essentially Formster, and this is writing events and reading events all at the same time. And then the cool thing is, you see, I'm running this local host. Well,
Yeah.
I deployed this code base, and I'm also able to fetch it from like another server
Oh, cool.
and render this data. So it's all just like sending and receiving from the same relay, and you can add any number of relays to fetch events or aggregate information from. So that's like one really cool part of Nostr. So now looking at like this code base, right? We have basically the index page. So it's showing like the form list, and then the link to actually create a form. And then on creating a form, we have, for example, the router, We have like creating an event, and what we're doing is we're stopping it from like doing the normal form behavior. We're getting from the form input fields the subject, the description, and then passing it in to create form, which we're calling this create form function that we're pulling in from Nostr utils. So we'll go into Nostr utils and we'll take a quick look. So we have connecting to a relay. We have publishing an event after connecting to a relay. We're closing the connection to the relay. And then voila, here is create form. So we receive the description and subject. We log that we're going to create the form. And then we have the event. We're getting the event ID. We're using Nostr tools here. We're creating a signature, and then we're publishing the event. So this is one way that you can do it, where the server is going to handle this stuff. But mainly this code base is for educational purposes. Normally you would want to rely upon like the NOS2X browser extension, not have to handle people's keys directly, unless that's something that you're trying to do, like abstract the complexity away from users. So that's something you can do, but that should be a deliberate like application decision or product decision that you're making about whatever app that you're building. So that's how essentially the create works. So we have the subject, and then we have like when the form is submitted, we're going here to create, and then we're pushing the event out. And yeah, then from there, you're just redirected back to the form ID. So then the form ID is just going here. It's getting the form ID from the URL. We're then looking up the form detail and getting the form detail. So now we go back to Nostr utils, and we're connecting to the relay. We're saying, hey, give me this form ID, and we're looking for all of the form details related to this particular form ID and event kind. And yeah, so then we're returning the form detail back to the page. And that's essentially what we render for here, the form description, the form subject. We also have the ability to create forms, or threads rather, in this form. So you can see very similar like sort of structure. And we're doing the same exact thing. We're creating a thread event, and then we're pushing them to the thread ID, where we're fetching the information about the thread and then rendering it. So you can see there's like a very clear pattern here. And now we have this last component where it's like thread list. What's thread list doing? So we're doing something very similar. So we're getting the threads, we're connecting to a relay, we're looking for the event kind that I decided to use, 11. I probably build or architect, or maybe model is the correct term. I would model this differently than what I originally did, just thinking of like Nostr Network now and some of the nips that are out there. But at the time, this is the decision I went just for my own kind of interest in building and doing hackathon stuff myself. And what we're doing is we're just like making a subscription to a relay, and we're getting all of the threads, and then we're setting the threads, and then we're pushing the event. So then we loop over all the threads, and then we map out all the threads that we're seeing in the particular client. So here, for example, we have the forms, and we're like doing the same thing to get the form list. Then we're getting the thread list, and then we're rendering on the page. So that's essentially what I just walked through on the code.
Wow.
And the same is true for like the thread ID. So I did this almost the same exact thing, where I'm fetching the thread detail, and then I'm rendering it on the page. And then I'm doing the same thing for creating a comment, where you have this form to be submitted, and then it pushes you back to the thread ID. So you can see like there's a pretty clear-cut pattern on like how to build and develop this application. And like this should give you like enough information to think about, well, how do I relate like one event to another event? Like how do I like look up this information? And you could take this code base very far if you wanted to. And I plan to get back to it here very soon, but I'm busy doing educational stuff, so
Yeah,
haven't had much time to iterate on this
absolutely.
code base.
I mean, dude, this looks. I mean, it could be designed a little bit better, but it's already built. I mean, the structure's there, right, Santos? Like the structure. Yeah.
The functionality is all there.
Yeah.
I was going to do the design next, and I have a very cool design that
Oh, really?
made for
Oh,
me.
wow.
Yeah, a friend
Okay.
and colleague made for me.
Oh, wow.
But I used Bootstrap for this just to like get something together quickly. But now I've moved to use Tailwind. As you can see, my design skills. Yeah,
Let's do
we're
this.
almost there. So now that kind of concludes all of our education for Formster, and kind of looking at an example implementation for uh, the Nostr tools package. So we're good there. Let's look at something I was hacking on just yesterday. Let's go ahead
Oh,
and
the
take a look.
login with Nostr. Nice.
Yeah, I was inspired by Stacker News and like all the other cool sites that have built with Nostr and built like authentication mechanisms. And I was thinking, how does this work? And then I got busy writing some code. I had an idea, and when I have ideas, I like to go and execute on it immediately. So from there, let's go ahead and run this and see what's going on. So I just cloned the repository. I installed the dependencies, and now we're pretty much good to go. Take a look at what's going on with login with Nostr. So doing like
Whoa, that's
very
cool.
basic, but you
Can
can
you
see
zoom
the
in? Can
button
you zoom in a
design is
little bit?
improved.
Can you zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, yeah.
Just like so everybody can see it.
Look
Oh,
at that.
wow. Look at that. Look at that. I want to touch it, but I can't because I'm physically far away from it. Look at that, dude. That's so cool.
So we can open up the console too. I
It
think
looks
some of
so
it
much
is
better in
better.
black than it does purple. That's just me. But
I like black,
me too.
I like styling in black and white. I'm not a complicated man.
Yeah, I tend to like black and white too. I don't know why. It's just the goth in me, I guess. I don't know what it is. Who knows, Santos? Who knows? But yeah, that
Got
looks
this
really
nice rubber
clean.
state.
That
Got
looks
a
really
rubber
clean.
state. We'll style it some more too. I won't leave it hanging like Formster. I'll make this like a properly styled page with Tailwind. I got some more tricks up my sleeve now.
What's Tailwind, Santos, real quick, just so people know.
Tailwind CSS is like let's just pull up the website. That'll be easier. So you can basically have this utility functions in CSS to build almost anything that you want. So what I did was I just like watched YouTube and then I looked at like a bunch of example CSS or like classes from Tailwind. I asked ChatGPT a bunch of questions about it. I just slowly iterated. I kind of got a feel for it and I understood it. And then I wanted to dig in deeper. So then you click the Get Started button. You look at all the documentation. You kind of read it from this point after you get the installation set up and such. And then you can learn like all about like Tailwind, the CSS classes, which CSS classes you need to use, and that's what we built that TabComp site in, essentially.
Wow. Look at
And
that.
Next.js happens to like come with it, like as a part of its package, you can install it. So you can just get it like right out the box with Next.js, which is what I've been using for all the JavaScript kind of related
That's
things that I've
awesome.
been showing.
Dude, thank
So
you
you
for
can
sharing that. Thank you for sharing that.
This is
Sure.
what Next.js is too for the folks that don't know. So you go to
Dude,
nextjs.org.
awesome. Love it. Yeah, dude. I love that you're showing everybody how you're building things. This is cool. This is what you can go learn. Go to Zebedee's documentation. It's all there. It's all there.
So now let's run through this login with Nostr. So then you can click this login with Nostr and you can see
Oh,
I
dope.
created and signed an event. So that happened really fast, right?
Yeah.
But here you can see in the console, and then I'll adjust this real quick with my browser extension. So from there, you can see I called sign event, which then passed the event into the browser extension. I've already approved this site with my browser extension, so
Mm-hmm.
it already automatically like authorized it, and then it returned back the ID and the signature, and then I broadcast the event. So imagine like Formster using this to create threads and forms and comments instead of generating a key pair automatically. You can kind of reduce some of the things you need to build and make it even easier. You could use this for not only like authentication, but just publishing events in general for short notes.
Yeah.
And that's what clients like Primal use as well. So it just passes the event to your browser extension gives it back, and then you're able to publish something.
And honestly, to the people that are like listening out there right now, like this makes it so much easier just for like a regular pleb to get introduced to whatever thing you're building. Like this has been one of my things telling Keon to implement into Stacker News for the longest time, and then finally he had time to do it. But like this makes it so much easier for people to start using your product right away or app or whatever that you're building. It even throws you into the category for the hackathon. Just add this. And now you're in the Nostr category too, technically, right?
Yeah, you're right about that. I would say if you built like a system where you're using Nostr off, like or not Nostr off, but you're verifying someone has the authority to publish an event, and then from there you create an account for them or log them into their account. That's
Yeah,
fair.
that's fair, right? Yeah, we got to give it to them.
So basically, let's kind of examine how this code works. So we have our app directory. We're going into page, which is the index page. So the home page that we're looking at with the Nostr button. You can see we're using some Tailwind here. We're making some progress on our styling. And from there, we have this login page, which when you click this Nostr button, as you can see with this Nostr login component, we're handling the click. We're waiting like 2 seconds, and then we're sending them to /login. So here we have login, and then on this login page, what we're doing is we're fetching a challenge from our API. So from our API, we're just generating a large random number. We're creating a hash. And then from there, we're setting the hash to be a hex encoding, and then we're returning the challenge back to the client. Once we get this back from the client, if we have a valid browser extension, and here's the fetch challenge here. So we're calling this fetch challenge, which is calling our API. From there, if the challenge is not null, then we're going to go ahead and continue. We construct the authentication event, and then from there, we're setting the kind, the current timestamp, which we're generating the same way that we were generating it with Nostr tools. We're setting the content, and we're signing the event. So we're using the browser extension. We're waiting for it to sign. We print out or console.log the signed event. We check if this is okay, and we're setting the okay from there. And then once we have an event change on the okay and very okay, if both are true, so we validate the event and the event is successful, it's very okay, then we're going to go ahead and push the user back to logged in. And you can see that it takes this in as a dependency. So we're only executing this when okay and very okay has changed. In that's what shows the login. So when we push them to logged in, we go to the page and then we just show them logged in. So like the next step that I would do with this code base and what I'm planning to do is actually like use Supabase or another like auth platform to create an account associated with that user and issue them like a cookie or a session or a JWT, something like that. So then they can stay logged in, and then you can show specific things to them or not.
So I have a question, Santos. With this thing that you created, can you also do it to where you send them a DM maybe through Nostr that they know, hey, you're logged in now or something? Like, could that theoretically happen? I don't know why you would do it, but like, could that happen?
Yeah, in some of the discussion in the pull requests related to like this functionality, there's a really cool idea proposed by someone. I don't remember who it was anymore, but they like DM the user a PIN code, encrypted DM,
Oh,
a PIN code, so
boss.
you log in, kind of like Magic Link,
Yeah.
but for Nostr. So that's one implementation I want
That's
to
so
do as
smart, dude.
well. Yeah, by
That's actually a great way to do it, right?
Yep. And then if you can decrypt it, then you know the PIN code and you enter it in just like the code that you would normally get. You could even generate 4, 5, 6 random numbers, and then you could have a database to like check and see the login attempts. And if there's too many, then you just don't allow them to log in. Like kind
Yeah.
of trying to brute force it. But
Yeah.
yeah, this
That
is
would be
like some
cool.
things you can do. I also came up with like a flow where you could pass this to mobile apps too as like a Nostr event. You know, like invoices, you have the URI lightning colon LNBC or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
LNURL dot 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 dot. You could do something similar where we create this, like we showed earlier, like the npub, the nsec relating to the Nostr public key encoded as like Beck32, or the secret encoded as Beck32. You could do n-auth and then pass in this event such that it's like Nostr colon n-auth dot dot dot. When you click on it from a button, it'll prompt an application that is looking or listening for this sort of URI, which then you could then handle like the signature and the sending back of the data. But you would need a callback essentially
Yeah.
in order to handle that. So that's something I'm thinking about.
So
And
many
like how that might be able to
possibilities,
be.
dude. There's so many possibilities with when you have something like this added to it. It just changes. you can go so many different ways. It's interesting. This is why I love Nostr so much. There's so much innovation that's happening right now in the ecosystem, and it's just like these little things, and everybody's working really hard to, get some standardization, I guess you should say, out there, right? So
Absolutely. We'll see different models, see different things tested, maybe combinations of things.
mm-hmm.
And it's just a very promising space. Like you're saying, like you're taking this thing that's kind of like old and not very sexy and making it like kind of sexy and fun to work on again. Because it's
Yeah,
just new, it's innovative. Like you're able then to like bring your identity to like whatever client that you want, and you really have
right.
like full control over that.
Yeah,
So that's kind of the beautiful thing about Nostr is like
yeah.
you have freedom technology without even knowing it's freedom technology. It's
That's
superior
Yeah,
technology.
that's one of the great things I love with that Odell has like really champion out there. He's just like talking about how it's like this freedom technology, that's this freedom technology. And it's such a great flag for Nostr to carry, I think. And I think a lot of us really believe that. So great stuff, man. Great stuff. Great stuff. It's a good
Yeah,
community. Good
so
community that's being kind of made right now around Nostr.
definitely. But that's pretty much like how Formster works in a nutshell. And all we have here in this sort of utils crypto library is
Mm.
uh, basically generating the random number and returning it. So
You look like a
nothing like
shadowy you look like a shadowy supercoder right now, by the way.
oh yeah, the sun's going down here. I didn't turn my light on.
Oh, there you go.
Gotta
Whoa.
bring back the bright screen, right?
Yeah, yeah, dude, that's awesome, man. I I love what you presented today. But you know what else I love? I love and oh yeah, I forgot about this. What is this sentence?
Oh, good. Thank you, Car, and thank you,
Oh,
Club Lab.
oh,
Thank you for like everyone that's tuning in, whether you're live or you're gonna watch this later. Thanks to my lovely wife Haiti, Andre Nevis, our CTO, for the help and mentoring. Fiat Joff for being Gosu Joff, Brianna, Peachy, and my team at Zebedee. Yeah,
and
thank you all.
thank you to all the plebs out there listening and sending us sats during this broadcast. We're gonna do another Spaces. This is gonna be like on. We're gonna try to get it set up on Nostr Nest, and then we're gonna do it on Spaces too. But we'll have a conversation about this again. And then we have another stream set up next Tuesday as well. Is that right?
Yeah. We have another stream set up. We'll go over some Lightning UX, some Lightning UIs, some integration flows, look through some more code bases, and yeah, we'll have some fun.
Yeah. And also, if you're going to be in Plub Lab, you're going to be in Austin, I should say, come to Plub Lab. We have a lot of events going on next week. We'll be talking about TabConf too as well. So it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. It's getting exciting. All right. I'm going to end it there.
All right,
Cool.
peace, everyone.
Later, guys.